Albert Einstein said the day you stop learning is the day you start dying, and now I wholeheartedly agree with this. So here's some things that I have learned this past week that have just helped me to further my self-education through podcasts and videos and all the like. So my first one is going to be this episode from A Diary of a CEO. Currently, it's the most recent one, and it's honestly been such an eye-opener and so interesting. The guest speaker was Dr. Jill Bottle Taylor, and she was so interesting. She was talking about the brain, and she is a neurologist from Harvard who had a stroke, and she's basically talking about the brain and what she learned about the brain after having her stroke, which was really interesting. She talked about a lot of different things, such as different characters we have in our brain, left and right brain thinking, which is something that I've known about prior to that, so that was quite interesting to learn more about. She was also talking about how our thoughts sort of shape our actions and how we perceive life, which I found really interesting, and talking about depression and trauma and all these different things to do with the brain and how we can rewire our brains to think differently and to have a different perspective and outlook on life. It was so interesting. I literally wrote like 4 different pages, and I was watching it as I went to bed. It was so interesting, and I definitely recommend anyone to watch that episode. The Diary of a CEO podcast talks a lot about health and business, and it's one of my favorite podcasts, and I definitely recommend this episode. Now, my second has been this book. This book I've been reading for quite some time, but I have started to make some notes and have some really interesting findings. It's called Visual Thinking by Temple Grandin, and it basically talks about not only visual thinking, but just the way in which the brain works again, which is quite similar to that Diary of a CEO episode. She talks a lot about PTSD, about visual thinking, about neurodiversity as well, and the different ways in which people think, talking about advantages as well, and how sometimes some people could be more intelligent, but then there are other genes that are sort of traded off. So say you're more intelligent, but then you become sort of socially inept and you have a hard time and you struggle with social interactions. She also talked about the prefrontal cortex, which is something really interesting, specifically in relation to ADHD and schools as well, and how the school environment works for some and not for others. It's really interesting. I'd recommend anyone to go and find it and read it. I also had a debate club that week, and there were a few points in there about school and whether it equates to success, because that's what our debate was on. And so I found that I found this book really interesting to refer back to. That's what the blue tabs were for, and it was really interesting. It actually helped me win the debate, which is cool. So I definitely recommend this book. Now, my third thing that I would say is that I also watched 2 videos from this independent